Today on Eco India, we are staring at the sun and advances in harnessing it as a reliable source of energy. Solar power is clean, flexible, and for now, one of the most affordable renewables on the market. We unpack some of the pros and cons. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Sanuta Raghu. Now, averaging 300 days of sunshine a year, India has huge solar energy potential. It still relies heavily on coal for its electricity needs, compounding some of the world's worst air pollution. But with plans to get half its power supplies from renewables by 2030, India is going to have to up its solar game. A village in Gujarat is leading the way as the country's first to be powered by the sun 24/7.
For years, the smart boards at this school in Gujarat were rendered useless by an unreliable power supply. But that changed when the entire village of Modera plugged into solar energy. Now, not only does its school have round-the-clock power, the building generates its own electricity with an array of solar panels on the roof.
As a teacher, हमने ये फायदा देखा कि पहले हम ये जो
Earlier, we could not really use our digital classrooms as much as we would have liked. But since we got the solar panels in the school, we can use all the tools that use up electricity without worrying about the electricity bill. We now use as much power as we need through the day.
तो ये अच्छा बेनिफिट है कि उनको जो चाहे तब तक लगातार 11 से 5 तक हम बढ़ा सकते हैं.
Famous for its 11th century sun temple, Modera was chosen as the location for a pioneering pilot project that seeks to answer a simple question. Can solar power meet the energy needs of an entire rural community? In February 2022, the government provided residents with free panels to install in their homes. 1,300 households signed up, and by October, their roofs were ready. So too were those of the school and other government buildings. To ensure a constant energy supply, the panels in the village are connected to a solar power plant that was built nearby. It's equipped with a further 22,000 panels.
जो गांव है मोडेरा गांव उसकी जो एनर्जी
We designed this plant specifically keeping in mind the energy requirements of Modera village. We set up a 6 megawatt power plant and a 15 megawatt battery energy storage system. So this fulfills the requirement of the entire village.
हम लोग इस एनर्जी से हम लोग फुलफिल करते हैं उसको.
The battery storage system supplies power when the sun is not shining, during the night or the weeks of rain in the monsoon season. It ensures a smooth distribution of the power generated by the plant and Modera's residents.
हर पावर प्लांट को
Every power plant needs a control room that can monitor everything and identify any faults in real time to resolve them quickly. So this system is for this solar plant, and that screen at the back is showing all the data. For example, how much energy is being generated by the sun's radiation is getting measured and can be seen here. We can even monitor the sun temple and how the energy is fed to the entire village from here. And we can also see how much energy is getting stored in the batteries. And we can even monitor the surplus energy that gets transmitted to the main grid.
वो ग्रिड में ट्रांसमिट हो जाएगी.
Village households can generate around 1 kilowatt of power, enough for most to cover their daily needs. If they have any energy left over, the government buys that surplus, putting money in residents' pockets. This monetary incentive has served to win over more residents. Mahinder Patel was initially skeptical about the project, but decided to get on board when he saw his neighbor's electricity bill drop to zero.
Earlier, our bills would be around 2,500 rupees every month. But now we end up earning money if we use less electricity than our solar panel produce. Every year, all our savings are credited into our bank accounts.
The project, funded by the government to the tune of 9 million euros, is lighting up lives in Modera. 38-year-old Ramila Darji runs a small tailoring shop. The switch to solar has made a big difference to her business.
मैं मशीन पग से चलाती थी और सोलर
I used to operate the machine manually with my foot. Now, after I got solar, I got an electric motor for the sewing machine. Earlier, I would only work in the day and make 2-3 blouses. Now, with solar power in the house, I can work in the night till late and make more blouses. So, where I was able to make about 500-600 rupees a day, now I make clothes worth at least 1500 rupees a day. This has helped me so much in running my household expenses.
खर्च करने में मेरे को दिक्कत कोई नहीं आती है, आराम से घर चलता है हमारा.
Back at Modera's school, solar energy is no longer an abstract concept from science textbooks. The children are experiencing the benefits of clean green energy harnessed from the sun firsthand.
Our village was already famous for the Sun Temple. It is now also India's first village to have solar power, and that has made it more famous. I'm very proud to say that I live in Modera village.
India is the world's third largest carbon dioxide emitter and aims to meet half of its energy demands from renewable sources by 2030. It's an ambitious goal. Modera is a model that relies on government funding, but it's offering India a glimpse of the benefits that come with being energy self-sufficient.
As global temperatures and energy costs rise, the race to transition to green energy has picked up pace. Germany will need many more solar energy plants to meet its climate targets. But where should it put them? It's a question that's creating conflict in rural communities.
The small eastern German village of Hohensaten is located right next to a forest. It used to be part of a restricted military area that was cordoned off for decades, where the wilderness could thrive undisturbed. But soon, there might not be much left, as there are plans to clear 370 hectares of forest, equal to more than 500 soccer pitches, to make way for a solar power plant.
I was horrified to hear we would have to chop down the woods to produce renewable energy. There are rooftops and other surfaces available. You don't sacrifice a forest to increase the energy supply.
Conflicts surrounding solar power plants, many are brewing in the eastern German state of Brandenburg, as many surfaces here are seen as suitable for solar energy. Will the countryside around Berlin soon look like this? Many residents are protesting. But for farmers like Jürgen Giese, solar energy can also be a blessing. They can earn 3 times as much leasing the land to power companies than from agriculture.
As farmers, we have to pay for everything up front: fertilizer, pesticides, seeds. But we never know how the harvest will be. It's a huge risk. When the solar firms came to us and asked if we were interested, of course I was, because it offers security for my farm too.
100 hectares of land in the district of Tempelfelde north of Berlin are being eyed for solar power, and some here also stand to lose. These riding stables are right next to the proposed plant. This is what the neighboring field would look like. Less appealing to paying visitors.
I think people will reconsider coming here to ride. They might prefer to go where they can ride by the fields and through the woods.
There is dialogue between opponents and supporters of the project in Tempelfelde. The investors changed their plans following protests by citizens' initiatives.
We reduced the planning area by about 40%. We have very few lines of sight from residential areas. But where it would be seen, we plan to install hedges. And we've gone far away from the village and the residential areas. Quite different from what was first envisioned.
What's certain is that by 2045, Germany hopes to get most of its energy from renewables. To do this, solar and wind power systems must be expanded on a massive scale. But aren't there more suitable places for generating solar energy around the world? Sunnier places?
North Africa has that land, enough land. If we covered 300 kilometers by 300 kilometers with solar panels, or the equivalent of about 1% of the Sahara, we could meet the entire planet's energy needs.
Solar power plants already exist in the Sahara, but they mainly generate power for countries in the region. Nothing has come of the big plans to export that solar power to Europe due to a lack of electricity lines, investment, and political faith.
If we consider these desert solar parks over 10 to 30 years, we don't know what the political conditions will be in 10 years' time. We need multiple sources. Building solar parks here in eastern Brandenburg is the way to go.
Soil here is too sandy and dry to grow much.
We've used fertilizer and pesticides. We've done everything. We've plowed, we've sown seeds, then ended up with no harvest.
The farmers next door have the same problem.
Not only is there too little, it's also of poor quality.
Both farmers are now benefiting from the energy company's offer to lease a small portion of their land for a lot of money. They also sit in the local council that decides on this investment.
Of course, it does look a bit bad. I am a local councillor, and I'm also a farmer. We will not vote on this. We will also not have any influence on the whole procedure. The other councillors will have to decide. That's how democracy works.
But down at the riding stables, they see things differently. Juliane Ulich feels that local councillors are not the right negotiating partners.
Such big projects simply don't belong in the hands of local community representatives, people who work as nurses, who possibly can't read or understand the contracts. The state or federal governments should regulate these things differently.
Which leaves the question, who should decide? And where should all the wind and solar power plants go that are so urgently needed for the switch to green energy?
In the face of controversy around solar parks on land, floating farms are viewed as a potential solution. Installed on the surfaces of lakes, reservoirs, ponds or offshore, they're gaining popularity in Asia. Europe's largest floating solar park recently opened in Portugal. Our reporter got a tour of the facility to explore its advantages.
Here on Portugal's Alqueva Reservoir, Europe's biggest floating solar park covers the equivalent of 6 football pitches. It can only be reached by a short boat trip, one on which Miguel Patena has been giving many interviews. It's taken 7 years for the energy company team to bring the 5-megawatt photovoltaic array to completion.
It's working, and it's fully understood by everybody what is the potential that we have on our hands. It's not only selling energy. That is my purpose, or our purpose in my team, is that to have things that are sustainable, have a reason, and use the least resources, or the minimum resources as possible.
The energy company is investing heavily in renewable energy. Solar currently only makes up 6% of the country's energy mix, but an advantage of floating solar parks is that they occupy spaces that could not be used otherwise. And being on water, energy production is more efficient than on land, as the panels don't heat up as much and are likely to last longer. The panels must be kept clean to produce as much energy as possible. The job requires a good sense of balance and patience. But eventually, robotic cleaners will take over the task. 1,500 local households receive clean energy from the system that's been financed mainly by Portugal's state energy provider EDP.
There's a lot of potential, a lot of surfaces that can be used. And scalability, yes, it's just as they are modular, of course respecting all the environmental conditions that you have, it's scalable. It's complementary to the other sources. It's not an alternative, it's complementary. So it's a solution to go further and to increase speed of changing and decarbonizing.
The array connects to the grid via the hydropower plant in the dam. Excess solar energy can be stored or used to pump water back into the reservoir to generate hydroelectric power. The 12,000 panels and 25,000 floaters on the Alqueva reservoir have been tested to withstand water, wind and rough waves. The floaters are made in this factory in Castalla in Spain's Alicante region. Juan Carlos Hernández is one of the engineers behind the technology. They're made from recycled polythene plastic, and they're selling like hotcakes.
We're just a little company, but we grew over recent years. Now we're 20 people who work on the design, the commercial side and engineering. And on the production sites, we're talking about 30 to 40 workers.
It's a real success story for Hernández and Emilio Pons, who set up the company together in 2008. They're now adapting their floaters to other environments, such as sewage plants or agricultural waste facilities. The Alqueva array covers less than 1% of Europe's largest artificial lake, and EDP is planning a much bigger floating array on the lake as part of Portugal's push for 100% renewable energy by 2030.
This established a benchmark in Portugal and an example to the world as well with our first project in a hydro dam, and then placed the benchmark in all utilities in the world, especially in Asia. Asia, they were very keen on these projects because they have large dams and also an important energy problem to solve. And they were ramped up exponentially with these type of projects.
So we can expect to see many more of these floating solar parks around the world in future.
To the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu now, and a retired government worker who's on a mission to improve lives in rural areas. He's introduced farmers to sustainable measures that boost yields and devised a string of solar-powered devices specifically tailored to their needs.
Experiences are meant to be passed on, and David Raja Beula has had plenty. He spent many years as the Deputy Director for the Department of Agriculture in Tamil Nadu state, meeting farmers who were unable to make ends meet. This region is one of the most economically deprived in the country. Often farmers here are caught in a cycle of debt.
When I visited villages, farmers told me they struggled to repay their loans because their earnings were too low. In extreme cases, when they couldn't repay their loan, some even committed suicide.
Beula uses his experience in the field to bring change. Initially, he found two big problems here: the reliance on pesticides and water scarcity. Both were putting farmers deeper into debt as they struggled to generate sufficient yields.
Farmers should not only budget their finances, but they should also have a budget for water.
Starting with the water problem, Beula spoke to a farmer named Senthil who was in deep debt and willing to try out new ideas. They modeled a version of what Beula calls a solar-powered drought fighter to save water and money on electricity.
In a situation where the next rainy season is delayed by 3 months, farmers need to preserve water and crops. A 200-liter tank can hold the water, which can be mixed with coco peat. The solar-powered sprayer distributes the mixture on crops. This way we can save the crops for 3 months till the rain comes.
And since they now had a solar panel, they dealt with the second problem too.
I also invented the solar-powered light trap for controlling pests. It uses solar energy and the light in it powers on automatically during the night. In the plate below, we keep some water mixed with shampoo. This traps insects.
Light traps around the field act like a natural pesticide that protects crops. But while capturing insects may be good to turn profits in the short term, loss of biodiversity is bad for agriculture in the long term. So there was more to be done. And this time, the change they brought in together was the one with the most potential: diversification. Instead of growing crops that depend entirely on rain, like the lentil type urad dal, they also started looking at native vegetables and nuts, as well as herding animals.
Farmers do not have to spend money investing in new crops. They can use their existing crops and animals, but they should look at the market to increase profitable crops and keep the less profitable crops to a minimum.
Beulah started trying this out with Senthil too.
Senthil was cultivating mung beans on land which does not have irrigation facilities. If there is rain, he can get some profit. If not, then he loses everything. But he also had cashew trees, and there were chickens on his farm too. So we worked out how he can increase the number of chickens to get supplementary income. When we calculated his profits at the end of the year, they exceeded 350,000 rupees or 4,000 euros.
To work with what he had, Senthil began using the waste from the chicken as fertilizer for his cashew trees and other crops, and their productivity increased too. Soon after, farmers from nearly 10 villages nearby also started following the new process.
The next step I am planning is to practice organic farming without using any chemical pesticides. Chemicals are expensive and make farmers sick. I want to empower farmers in the area to shift to organic farming.
Senthil now speaks at community gatherings to tell his story and promote farming changes that both improve profits and help the environment.
Swiss environmentalist Louis Palmer is passionate about solar energy and believes the world is brimming with good ideas to stop global warming. To find them, the man who became the first person to circle the globe in a solar-powered vehicle is back on the road, taking his message across the earth. We caught up with him in Berlin.
Louis Palmer wants nothing less than to save the world with his 3-ton solar vehicle. He's travelling the globe in it, collecting ideas to tackle the climate crisis.
We want to meet people who are doing something about climate change. These are individuals and companies with innovative ideas, and we invite them to our video studio, where we make clips for social media. We want to show, hey, the world is full of ideas. It's simply unbelievable that CO2 emissions are ruining our world because there are so many solutions.
Louis Palmer's contribution is the solar butterfly. The self-sufficient tiny house on wheels unfolds its solar panels like a butterfly spreads its wings. They power both the electric car that travels some 300 kilometers on one charge and the appliances inside its cabin.
We run everything in here with electricity, not just the coffee maker, also the TV studio, the stove, microwave, shower, the cameras, computer, everything we need.
It's the world's first vehicle built largely from plastic waste taken from the sea, and it's emissions-free. There's a reason it looks like a butterfly.
We chose the butterfly on purpose because it transforms itself. It starts as a caterpillar, devouring everything on the ground. That's us, human beings. We devour everything, oil, gas, and coal from the ground. We humans have to follow the caterpillar's lead. It suddenly grows wings, takes off, and then flies from flower to flower. We too have to change our ways and move towards renewable energy, so we don't need coal, natural gas, and oil anymore.
Palmer and his team hope to cover more than 200,000 kilometres within 4 years. Their route leads through 90 countries on 6 continents, including a spin through India in 2023, drawing attention everywhere they go to the benefits of solar power.
Solar energy alone could save us from the worst of global warming. We can use it to heat houses, run cars, produce electricity, and even produce hydrogen and power airplanes. So 3/4 of the problem could be solved just with solar energy.
On December 12, 2025, the Solar Butterflies World Tour is due to end in Paris, in time for the 10th anniversary of the Paris Climate Accord.
Imagine a world where every way we consume energy is powered by renewable sources and not fossil fuels. From phone chargers to the cars we drive around, from kitchen appliances to the treadmills we use to keep fit. I hope today's episode showed you that this is possible and that we need to continue to move in that direction. I'll leave you with that and see you again next week. Goodbye and thanks for watching.